I will throw 5 times in a row, right? And so you find yourself I find myself being like, I don't want to get caught in that measuring contest. So I'm deliberately going to change it up so that way we don't get into a contest of egos and I can keep overloading him.
But you're playing to win. That's been the huge line in the sand for me. Like, if this is still working, you want to be stubborn? I have more health than you. So, okay, this just worked 4 times in a row. Oh, it didn't work this time? I guess I'll just pump the brakes. Oh, it's your turn now? Okay, what are you going to do? Because you clearly just demonstrated, this comes out of reading the player, you clearly just demonstrated that you're refusing to adapt. So now I'm going to put the ball in your court purposely and see what you do. So here's enough of rope. Go find yourself a nice tree and tell the rest of your story.
Hello, and welcome to the Absolute Guard Podcast.
Yes, welcome. My name is Benny, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host John, who is the brain to my pinky. How's it going, John?
Oh, I for a second I thought you were talking about like the actual finger. I was like, that makes more sense. I guess so. Yeah, I'm the guy that's always got like the evil plan, and then you're the guy that's like, hey, take it easy. I think that's a good look. That's a good look.
Trying to take over the world.
Yeah, I was thinking at the beginning of like the last couple podcasts when I say hello, welcome to the Absolute Guard Podcast, I noticed that like, so what happens is I'm like busy juggling the music and then also doing the transitions and then trying to do the audio at the same time, and then I realized that I was like going monotone while I was introducing the show and not being remotely excited because I'm distracted by these other things, right? So I'm always like, hello, and welcome to the Absolute Guard Podcast. And then you usually liven it up with some joke and it gets me woken up and I realize that I'm doing that shit. So maybe I'll do like a radio voice next time and we'll go from there.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, well, who do we have on the show today, Benny? I'm asking you this time. I'm asking you.
Well, today we got my good friend Nico, Mr. SNK. We previously talked to him on episode 23. So if you guys want to get a little bit more information on his background and our previous conversation, you can look up that episode on Spotify or YouTube.
Well, what's up, Nico? How's it going, man?
It's going really good. Really good. It's a nice Tuesday. It's about 100 degrees outside. Washed my face, got home about 30 minutes ago. So, yeah, really smooth. Looking forward to being on today.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Nice.
Yeah, it's heated up. Have you guys turned on your AC yet?
Oh, yeah.
It's starting to roll in, yep.
We just turned ours on.
85. As soon as it hit 80, well, I just got to do 5 to put on the roof. So, as soon as it hit 85, I was just like, click. Actually, I lied. I did it for my cell phone.
Oh, that's fancy. What kind of do you have? Like the smart thermostat, then the learning ones, like the Nest or the Honeywell ones, or the
pretty much. I have the little Honeywell gig set up, so it does everything. I have it'll kick on at 2 a.m, just to cool the house back off and then shut off. Save the power bill.
I get you. Well, cool. Yeah, we are. Today's an interesting day because it's episode 37. We've done 37 of these, and I was on Twitter the other day and regretting it, but I was on Twitter and they said somebody posted a combo, a 37 hit combo, and we're like, you got to have a 37 hit combo for Chun-Li, and I was like, why? And then I realized it's because 37 is a significant number because people really like Evo Moment 37. And I'm not even really sure where the number 37 came from, but like I think there's talks about 37 Reloaded coming back, the major tournament that Mike Watson puts on. So like that number, it does have some significance in our scene now, whether it was, it's kind of manufactured or not. The real hype behind the parry is real though. So like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just. I mean, I don't know where the number came from. From what I understood, it was kind of just something random. Like whoever put the video up was just like, you know what, this is just 37, and it's just like, because like I've seen people question like, where's moment 1 through 36, and it's like, well, that's whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Like this is moment 37 for whatever reason.
Yeah, it was that one, and then the Justin Wong one where he comes back against Yipes, I think. No, Yipes is commentating. I think he comes back against Sanford or something.
No, it was
No, it was Yipes. It was Yipes. Yeah, it was Sanford on the mic, maybe. Either way, like that one was like Evo moment 16 or some shit. Like they just come up with the numbers. I agree.
Yeah, exactly.
It just works that way. It's like going to a Vietnamese spot for pho. Like if there's not a number on the building, or there's not some dude outside smoking cigarettes, like the food's probably going to be crap. So you just slap a number on there, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's not to be racist or anything, but I mean, you know, when I go to places like that or any place that's like cultural, like that's what I look for first. Is like if I go to a pho place, like are there Vietnamese people there? If I go to a fried chicken place, like are there black people there? Are there other you know, that kind of thing? And it's just like, you know,
you are measuring the authenticity based on the demographics,
so
right?
My wife's favorite Chinese spot, like they're from the same region as her family. So when we went in there and like they were yelling in the back, she was like, "Oh man, it sounds just like my grandma when I was like smaller yelling." And I was like, "Oh wow, really?" And then the food was really good. So like, yeah, unfortunately, it's true.
Yeah,
for sure. You know, I had something, but I'm like, yeah, maybe not on a podcast. Okay, I'll tell it to you at the after show. It's fine. So yeah. Otherwise, like, I guess I'm trying to find a way to like decently segue into a question that I've been kind of burning to ask all y'all here. But I think this is just we'll just rip the Band-Aid off. So
bring it. I cut myself shaving earlier, so what's the difference?
So we played Street Fighter 4 together. We talked a lot about that in the previous episode that you were on, Nico. And you know, Street Fighter 4 was a big milestone for me because it was the first fighting game that I ever really played, and it was my first time being part of a discovery phase of a fighting game too, where everybody was playing it at the same time. People were learning about the game together. And I think we're kind of going to run into that with Street Fighter 6 coming out in June. And so I wanted to like, I've been thinking a lot about like the differences between now and then, as far as like how we're approaching the new game, you know, our like questions that we would ask in 2023 versus in 2009. How does social media change it? There's all kinds of different ways we can compare and contrast them. But I wanted to start with you, Nico, and kind of ask like, what are you looking for when you're picking up Street Fighter 6 compared to Street Fighter 4 back in 2009?
So right out the gate, as soon as I played Street Fighter 4, I was like, oh, cool. Honda's in it. I played him in Super Turbo. I played him in CVS2. I'm going to pick this character and be a character specialist. That's out the window. Am I still going to play that? Yes. But now it's different because, like, yeah, we're playing, we're having fun. I'm looking to see who has the most advantages, who wins the most matchups, who has the easiest opportunities to land their critical arts, who has the better normals. I'll still play Honda, but I'm picking a top tier character and I'm going to rotate with that meta versus rewinding back to 2009 where I was like, I'm going to stick with one character, new patch drops, stick with the same character. When in every other facet of my life, I've stacked the deck as hard as possible to win and be successful. So with this new Street Fighter coming out, we're picking up the frame data, we're picking up the top tiers, we're seeing who's winning, why they're winning, and we're analyzing that versus being stubborn and like my third place curse. So that's out the window. That whole rhetoric of being a character specialist and being loyal, like, no, I will counterpick you, and I'm going to play who has the biggest and highest advantage.
Okay. So I'm curious about in 2009 when you said Street Fighter 4 Honda, I am sticking with Honda because I played with him in other games, right? So that loyalty, does that come from the character's look, or like graphic design portion, or is it more from how they play, or from Honda's like tool set, or like what gravitated you towards him initially to the point where you wanted to stick with him in Street Fighter 4?
Um, being stubborn, really like hyping up the Japanese mindset of this is my tool and I'm going to hone it to win, no matter
So
the
Yeah.
circumstance.
so why did you pick that tool then out of the other ones at the very initial part of all this?
One was familiarity, so it wasn't readjusting or creating a new neural pathway. It was just like, okay, I already know what lane I'm in. I know what my options are, and I know what my win conditions are. Now I just have to refine them.
Okay. And so with switching to new top tiers like in Street Fighter 6, right? And I have questions about how we're going to get there, but ultimately, like, you know, if a top tier has a different style and doesn't play stubborn, how I guess how open are you going to be to learning like a zoning character or
Well,
a shodo?
well, so here's the thing. That's not the only fighting game I played. Every other fighting game I've played rushdown characters.
Ah, okay.
Rushdown characters and grapplers. So Street Fighter 4 was the only game where I was like, okay, I need to be defensively sound. Where if like you watch recent footage, I play the sumo wrestler like he's Seth. So Betty would be like, okay, it's just he's in the
Okay.
disrespect videos. So
Yeah.
it's changed now. And even with matchups at the pinnacle, at that top 1% or the top yield, that's when a matchup is going to be played. Kind of like if you watched Arcade Edition Fei Long versus anyone who whiffed a button, they immediately got wrecked because that's what your character was designed to do. So whatever the game plan is, we're looking at win conditions. We're not looking at, I mean, we're looking at having fun, but let's be honest, like winning is fun.
Yep.
So
Sure.
we're looking at again, I'm going to sound a bit redundant here. What are the win conditions? And yes, I am open to other styles because it's not just like, oh, well, he's just going to turtle this away because in this game, there's a guard crush meter. Actually, it's like 5 different things in one. But relying on like, oh, I'm just going to out turtle you. No. Will I have a strong neutral game? Absolutely. Am I going to mess around with the majority of the characters? Yeah, probably. But as for adjusting, like I'm a student of the game, and that just applies to almost every facet of my life. So taking the time to learn something new to enrich my life, like why wouldn't I do that?
Okay. Yeah, I mean that makes
Exactly.
sense. I guess so. I'm trying to figure out where your line is because in my case, right, like I try to play top tier if I can, but there's a line where I'm like, if Sim is top tier, for example, I don't like that's not my wheelhouse, and that's not like that's where my line is. Where I'm like, if Sim's top tier, I'll play the second best character instead, you know. And so
Yeah.
like there's a point where it's like your player potential versus the character's potential, and can you maximize that character's potential as a top tier versus what gels with you stylistically enough, you know. So I guess are you saying you're basically game for anything? Like if any character that's top tier, you're down to just try it and go?
I want to win because I thoroughly enjoy rubbing sand in people's face after they lose.
Ah,
Yeah.
So I don't say I'm petty, but I'm a huge fan of the Kevin Garnett mentality. So like, oh hey, I won. You know, you guys played a lot of Street Fighter 5. There's a lot of like hugging and courtesy going on. I didn't come from that generation of player. Like, I won't shake your hand if I lose. I'll tell you like good game and go yourself, but like don't expect anything nice out of me because we're not here to have fun. We're here to win. It's kind of like when talking about Scott. I've watched countless times where somebody couldn't put him down and he come back with like 3% health. That's why I gave him the persona of jumping through the window with the knife in his mouth. Because you do whatever it takes to win. You know, you guys didn't spend a lot of time in the arcades where people were elbowing you while you were playing just to screw you up. Like that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I mean,
laugh because one of Scott's biggest tells when he's trying to mount a comeback is he will jump at you. So that's what makes me. I'm sure you know that too.
I know it. I've
That's
played
how
him
he
plenty
starts
of
all of
times.
his momentum when he's mounting a
Yeah.
comeback. It always starts with a jump. It's usually
Yeah.
when he's in the corner.
Yeah, that's it. Like
That's awesome.
a cornered rat will bite a lion, man. That's just the way it works. So if you don't take him out, I know
Yeah.
one guy that did like 500 push-ups and almost like went into cardiac arrest. But guess what? He got up the next day and did like another 200 push-ups. Like that's Scott. That's those types of players, and whether it's his military background or he's just a prick, I don't know. But you run into guys like that will do whatever it takes to win, and I think that's missing from a lot of competitive gaming now.
I whenever I see somebody making a bold move, doing like to start a comeback like that, I as the person that's being jumped in on, or a comeback is happening to me, I'd be like, well, I guess I can't scare this guy. I can't intimidate him into killing himself because he's going in. He knows, he smells blood, right?
Something's going to land, and like the conditioning phase of that first or second round is gone.
Yep.
There's no more conditioning. That's your job as a player to figure out like, oh man, this guy's trying to take me out. Well, if I don't adjust, I'm going to lose.
Yep.
And you could see even for him when he made the wild card team and decided to blow everybody up, like that's exactly what happened. So yeah, if you can't adjust as a player, like you guys didn't have the luxury of playing Dan. Like Dan was my training partner, and all Dan did was counter pick me and laugh and abuse me and say, "Stop playing a shit character." And that taught me early on, like, wow, I have to be better than whoever I'm playing because they're just going to do dumb crap. So eventually I came up with the tools. Every patch or every iteration, you go, I need new tools now. Like if you watch me play now, I anti-air people with Ultra 1. It's a 10-frame startup.
Yeah.
And people get anti-aired with that. And I look at them and I'm like, look, if it misses, I take 200 damage. If it hits, you take 500 damage. So I win here regardless. I'm willing to take that risk.
Yeah, a lot of times you're like, it's, I don't know, 10 frames isn't that's still pretty fast for an anti-air, isn't it?
For Street Fighter 4 it's bad. Most good ultras are 7 frames.
Okay. Interesting.
And that's a huge window right there.
Yeah. A lot of times, like, you'd see somebody jump and then you'd think you did it in time, and then they would just be in front of you blocking.
Yeah.
And it's just like, like if you've seen any of Nico's recent clips, like there's a lot of times where it's just like he's getting that read. Like he knows like this person wants to jump, and it's activating like literally as the person's before the apex of their jump. And that's when you pretty much got to do it. Because otherwise,
do it early.
Like,
I had to train that. I spent about 2 weeks with a bunch of different characters and I put a lot of time into figuring like, okay, so it's frame data. We'll talk about our learning phase and how we retrained ourselves to look at different things.
Yeah.
When I first started playing, it was like 1 bar, cool. I got 180 damage. All right, I got him off of me. Now, 1 bar is about 300 damage from a hands combo, or I can headbutt somebody. But now, when I look at it, the headbutt comes out in 9 frames and the ultra comes out in 10. Why don't I just put the work in to land the big damage versus the minuscule damage? That's why I have a heavy defensive life lead, and now I get a mix-up from the corner. So it was a perspective
I forgot.
shift.
It always gives you corner, doesn't it? Yeah, ultra.
Now it was
That's a good
perspective. It was a perspective switch where it was like, okay, I can just get them off of me, or I can really make this hurt and punish a bad choice.
It's like you're weighing risk reward, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and then as like at the beginning of the game's life cycle, we're like, okay, it's too volatile right now, so let's lower the risk and lower the reward. But then as the game gets refined, and those become the differentiators more than anything else, and you have to go for that stuff.
So I constantly watch my footage, whether I win or I lose. It gets thrown up on YouTube. I watch it. I'm like, well, what did I lose by? And I noticed the most common denominator when I really, really broke it down, because you have to do your risk reward, your correction of errors. And I take a business approach to it because that's my forte. I would always lose with like, I don't know, 7 to 10% health left. And I'm thinking, well, wow, why do I lose with such little life? Let me find that damage. So I found it in a couple of different ways. And I'm like, oh, look, I'm winning more now. Go figure. So it's those small adjustments. I know you played Marvel. You know what happens when it's time to eat your lightning loops. And the same thing with like when you scored a knockdown with a Buki. One of my favorite matches is when we all went down to Tucson and at Abe's apartment, and you beat me, even though I was playing better.
I remembered that one today because Abe posted a picture of that on Facebook.
Yeah.
I should pull that up.
So like that was one of my favorite matches because it was the first time I was like, holy shit, I just landed an EX hands combo in the tournament. Like, wow, all right, awesome.
I remember that too, actually. That did a fuck ton of damage.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And I was like, all right, sweet. I did something that I normally don't do. This is awesome. And then you still like kick my ass at the end. But when I go back and watch that now, I say I could have ultraed that. I should have blocked better right there. I could have backdashed. Okay, here's my mistakes, and this is why that won't happen again. Because even with our current circuit of players, there are certain people I'll flat out tell them you can't win anymore. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you just can't win anymore. That's not in the cards for you because I understand how you play. And Mike Prosek, bless his heart, he would always have a running joke. He's like, if you're not careful, like I'll just download you. And that comes from, again, being in monkey business for so long. It's just like, well, what's your game plan? All right, I have like 20 seconds to figure out what you want to do and weigh out your options versus mine.
Yeah.
So that's where. Go ahead.
I remember even in Street Fighter V, when the game first came out, I had more experience with the game than you did, and we went down to Tucson. It was the same kind of story, and then so I felt like I was playing better at that point, but you beat me. I remember that pretty well. You played. I think you played Birdie, and I played Karen, right? And that was because like even though I had much more mechanics knowledge than you did at that point, I think that. Well, maybe not much, but either way, like you had a good read on how I played, what my patterns were, and you beat me. You beat John. Adjust. I didn't win the matchup. You beat John. You know.
Yes.
Like,
so
I get it.
Rock, one of my favorite Tucson guys to play. It took me years to finally figure out how he plays, and when it finally clicked, I was like, "This is genius." We're not playing the characters anymore. I'm playing the person sitting next to me. So I'm gonna try and mindfuck you and figure out what you're doing. And I'm going to ruin your day. I'm going to send you to loser's bracket or I'm going to send you home. So now it turned into I'm playing the person and I'm going to see what makes you tick. I'm going to do dumb things to see how you react to them. I'll reverse condition you and do whatever it takes to win. But now you're playing me. And even though you're mechanically sound, my experience and my background in that field per se trumped your mechanical background because you didn't have the expertise to back it up. And that, I'll segue real quick. I was in a similar boat. That was actually my christening. I practiced all these custom combos in CVS too. Can do this, can do that. I can do short into super. I can do full custom combos. And I ran into Cigar Bob. And I'm pretty sure I brought this up last time. He told me, it's cool and fun that you can do all these things, but if you can't implement them, then you're wasting your money. Yeah. So in that scenario, it was just like, wow, this guy's really good. I've seen him play Marvel. I know he's a brainiac, but he doesn't have the backbone to go for the kill. So this is where I have an advantage because I know how to close a round out.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about playing the player too, right? And John was talking about how you came about playing Honda in Street Fighter 4, and a lot of times like that's something that I've thought about, like the mental side of the game is like, because I played Honda for kind of the same reasons. Like I was playing him in Hyper Fighting. That's who I played in Street Fighter 2. I didn't really play like CVS 2, but that's who I was familiar with, right? And that's who I chose to go with. And when it comes to matchups, against Ryu, against Sagat, like those were tough matchups. But it was one of those things where like, as somebody that plays that character, it's something that I was used to dealing with already, right? Like from Street Fighter 2. Like that's a hellish matchup. Play Ryu, play Sagat, and okay, you're gonna play Honda. Yeah, deal with this fireball minefield and get through it. And it's like part of it, like in some ways, I think kind of builds you up in a way, right? Because you as a player have to level up like the mental side of your game to overcome that, right? So it's not like I don't have an advantageous matchup. So in order for me to win, I've got to get over this hurdle first. And if I can get over that, then then like you said, you're playing my game. And that's something like even in like Street Fighter 4, there was so many people that just hated playing against Honda, whether it was like the weird hurt boxes that he had up out of. I remember Rick would always complain about that the minute like he'd be doing some combo and like he just drops out and he's just like, oh, fucking Honda.
So, but
That
that's
stupid
his
hurt box.
that's his fault for not learning it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. Like, you didn't put enough of work in, so like victory loves preparation. You didn't put enough of work in. This is my advantage now, not yours.
Yeah.
A funny story about the whole Honda and like trucking it through. So I got so angry losing to a couple of Shoto players recently that I was like, you know what? Screw it. I picked up Poison. So I didn't know Poison was top tier. I just know she shit on Shotos. I had grown men yelling in the microphone in a tournament, this guy counterpicked me, and I had to like unplug everything because I almost fell out of my chair laughing. Like, all of these years of eating shit, and like I picked a top tier. I proved my point. I picked a top tier and I fucking crushed them. And I was like, this is the difference between you and I as players. I know what it takes to win. You're winning a shitty matchup and I can't walk block because we're playing online and you live in bumfuck Egypt. So I'm going to pick a top tier now, and you're going to see how it feels to have all of your tools stripped away and eat unblockables and eat overheads so that I can link into Rekka and Ultra. And I'm going to do EX moves that are +2 or +3 on block, and your stupid ass is going to be mashing buttons because you didn't learn the game, and I'm going to get another B&B into a mix-up. That's your problem. So I picked a top tier for like 2 weeks, and I was beating the shit out of people, and it was like, oh, I guess you can't just play Honda. And I was like, no, motherfucker. Like, I enjoy this. This is a hobby. I work like 60 hours a week. I have a wife and kids. I do this because it's fun and it's stress relieving. So, but if you really want to be a prick and play, I'm going to pick a top tier and you're going to eat shit from this. And sure enough, I don't want to play him right now. Just DQ me. Like, this is the stuff I was running into. I'm like, oh, the shoe's on the other foot there. It doesn't feel too good, does it?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that feels good just thinking about that.
Yeah.
That
I don't know, a lot of that.
Oh, go ahead, Benny.
No, I was gonna say a lot of that. It kind of like I didn't go to picking top tiers, but like a lot of times when towards the end of like Street Fighter 4, when I got semi bored, right, in terms of playing online, like I would pick trolley characters, like characters that I knew basics about, whether it was Zangief or Ryu, and I could get by with, and I was just like, it always be a matter of like, can you beat my Ryu? It's like, okay, well, you can beat my Ryu, and it's like the next time we match up, you get my Honda, and it was just like,
it wasn't fair after that.
Yeah, exactly, because it was just like,
oh,
I
know how you play now.
best.
Yes, that's it. So when we went to the arcade, that was actually called a bitch test. It's like, can you beat my third or my secondary? No, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not playing my main. Why bother?
Yeah, I mean, there's examples of that even in like in the local scene. Like when I first got here and I played in that first, or yeah, when I first moved here in 2012, and I played in that first Hasbat. That's the one where I came in and like I beat like Ernest and Isaac, and then I had to play Latif. And everybody knows Latif for playing Viper, right? Who did Latif play against me? He played Seth. And I was like,
why not?
I knew right then. I was just like, okay, he doesn't think I'm ready for him. And sure enough, like I wasn't ready for that. So I was just like, and I wasn't deserving of playing his best character at that time.
My experience with the whole top tier thing, and then people feeling like you're counterpicking them, was with Zero mainly. Ibuki, I got a little bit of it, where like you could basically you had to be a little bit specific on matchups, but by and large the goal was always the same, right? Knockdown and then left right, and then your left right it would change based on the character, but by and large not really. And with Zero it was kind of the same deal, where it was like, I can kill you in one hit and then mix you up for 2 more guesses and then the game's over. And I remember catching a bunch of shit from people because it was just like, it wasn't even counterpick because they didn't get to play at all, so there was no matchup to be played anyway. And so it took me a long time though to be like, man, they're just everyone's kind of discrediting what I'm coming up with here. Those lightning loops, the vegetables that I was eating, I'm like, why the fuck am I putting all this time into it if everyone just discredits it? And somewhere along the way I realized, I was like, no, logically this makes sense, because like if they're complaining about like me not outplaying them, then I'm just like minimizing the effort it takes to beat them.
So if you weren't outplaying them, then why did they lose?
Yeah, why did they get hit, right?
It's a simple question. Like why did you lose if this is scrubby? And again, that boils down to personal accountability. And most people from the age of like 18 to 25
yeah,
don't possess that. Like it hasn't developed in their brain yet.
yeah,
Or they're just ignorant. It depends. But
Yeah.
when somebody complains, like I remember one time Mocha Latte was terrorizing people, and I showed up to a tournament and I put him to bed. And he just shook his head, and Benny loves hearing this. I got Honda'd. And I was like, no, you focused in front of me and I ultra'd you, or you did an overhead that's -2, and my ultra at that time was like 0+1. No, you made an error and I capitalized off of it. That's the difference.
Yeah.
I want to run a thought exercise by you for that particular scenario, right? Because we've been there before where it's like, okay, you know, I got beat by this character and you kind of say it's salty, but I've actually drawn on that as like a way to stay calm. Like my best example for 4 would be Makoto, right? There are times when like you guess wrong 3 times and that's it and you're done, you die, right? And it's like I got Makoto'd, and like to me that's like, okay, I got Makoto, that's just the way this character's built. She has innate disadvantages to allow for this style of play.
Yes.
So it helps me cope with that better and not get pissed about being robbed, right? And like G is like that in Street Fighter 5, and eventually you're just like, I got to come to terms with this is the way the character's built. And so it's okay to just be like, I got G'd, and then you just move on. I've seen that as a coping mechanism, as a better, like as a way to like avoid getting so frustrated and tilted, really. And I was curious about your opinion on that, Nico. Is that still, I guess, is that denying that personal accountability that you mentioned earlier?
No. So again, I'm older. I have more gray hair. When I lose, it's not that, oh, I got gimmicked by this character. I deep dive into it. It's like, okay, I performed poorly. I made bad choices. What do I do to rectify this next time? Like we had a guy come over from Xbox, and it's sort of a hazing thing. Like you went to college, so you aggravate people. Guy shows up, he's hot shit, he beats 1 or 2 people, and I jump into the stream and I 5-0 him. And I tell him like, hey, welcome to PC, the better players are here. And
Okay.
he's been chasing me around. So it's not a coping mechanism. It's more along the lines of, did I perform poorly? Did I make bad choices? Why did I lose? And even like there was one guy that I just couldn't beat. He played Guy, and all he did was run away for 99 seconds and throw out stray buttons and anti-air like a maniac. So I lost to him like, I don't know, 8 or 9 times.
Mhm.
It gets frustrating after a while, and eventually anger is a tool. No matter how you look at it, anger is a tool. So pissed off, punched my desk. I'm like, why do I keep losing with this fucking guy? And I was like, oh. I went back, I watched the footage. I'm like, this is where all of his damage comes from. If I don't get hit by this and I take this off the table, oh, I'm not getting gimmicked out anymore. So I think when you're like, hey, this is what happened, this is why I lost, you're not looking at it deep enough.
Okay.
So
I mean,
why did I lose? Sorry, Benny, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, you know, in the heat of the moment, like a lot of people they want that rationale like right then and there, and like, you know, especially if you're in the tournament and that's your first loss, like you want, like you said, it's a coping mechanism in a way, right? Like you want to kind of get that out of your system and then just move on, because like if you're gonna dwell on it, then it's probably gonna affect you in the losers run. Whereas like, you know, like I'm trying to think of it was Rewired, like, so the second Rewired tournament in Tucson, right? We were playing Street Fighter 5, and I was playing out of my mind. Like I was in the bracket with Ernest, and I remember, I don't know if I still have the clips, but I remember it was like James Chen and Velociraptor were commentating that stream, and I went in to play. You know, I made it to the winners final of the bracket of the pool or whatever, and I had to go play Ernest, and Ernest was a demon to me, like through Street Fighter 4, through the beginning of Street Fighter 5.
It's okay, I terrorized him.
And here I was like on the biggest stage of our local community or regional community or whatever, and I took it to him, right? I just completely destroyed him. And I remember after that and getting into the winner's side, the next person I had to play was, I think he's from Vegas, Coup d'etat. And up until that point, like he was making a run with like Bison, and when we go play and I go on stage again, he picks Mika, and I got destroyed. And I walked off that stage into like, Scott and Jeff and like, Rick and all of them were kind of standing on the side, and I was just like, man, I should have known. He of course he would go pick Miko, right? And like for me, that was just like the coping mechanism right there, right? It was just like, man, if he would have picked Bison, I would have beat him. But then I think it was Rick that just straight up said, well, it's a character, you can choose a different character too.
Yeah.
And right then and there, it was just like, it just stopped
Rick.
me in my tracks. And I was just like, yeah, you're right.
That's
like,
your aha moment.
He outplayed me. And like, that was it. Like, it was just out of my mind from there, because at that point, it was just like, I'm not giving this guy his credit. Like Nico said, like, a lot of times, like I'd go back, like after our ran bets and stuff, post on Facebook, like, like a reflection or something. And a lot of times it'd be like, oh, well, I got outplayed today. And a lot of people would be like, oh, that's really upstanding of you to say that. And I was just like, well, at the end of the day, that's what happened.
It's the truth.
Right? Yeah. Like I come to the realization that I wasn't good enough that day. And, that's ultimately what it boiled down to.
I played Abe in $100 money match and lost. And that hurt. And everybody was like, no, it's okay. He's just using an overpowered character and you're using bottom tier.
I think I said that to you. I think I vaguely remember saying, like, you were mad at the time.
Of course I was mad. It was $100.
Yeah. I think I that was a little bit not very sensitive at the time. Either that or it was somebody else, but yeah.
But they were like, it's okay. He's playing a top tier. And I was like, no, bullshit. I lost. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. Like, I just got my ass kicked. And I remember he beat me at the next ran bat. And then the ran bet after that, he sent me to losers. And I got so angry that I went outside and chain smoked, and I was hanging out with Annie and like the other 25 people outside. And I went back in there, and it was grand finals. So I 3-1'd him the first time, and then I think I 3-0'd him after that. And he was like, well, what changed? And I said, well, I got so angry, Abe, that I told myself, I'm not losing to you anymore.
Yep. It's funny too that it's Abe of all people, because Abe is also somebody I know who is extremely motivated by anger. We've had both of you on the show, and both of you have told stories like that where you had a particularly big loss and then were motivated by anger, and then that kind of informed your next decisions.
Spite is a magnificent tool, because it's like, hey, you just got the best of me, but now I won when it counted. That was like Juicebox beat the shit out of me all the time, relentlessly. And then we were at Devastation, and there was a crowd of people behind us, and I was like, I'm not losing to this prick today. There's too much on the line. So I beat him, and I got the cheers and the pats on the back, and all of that was mute. I was so angry. I had like the tinnitus flaring up with the pulse in the ear. The heart rate was going. I like ripped my stick out. I didn't even shake his hand because I wanted to say like, yourself. And he sat there, and like I thought I was angry when I lost. Like he cried for like a half hour because it stung, and it was like, yeah, no, I wasn't getting outplayed today. This isn't on the table. Like fate's on my side. Sorry. So go ahead, Benny.
No, I was gonna say, like, I talked about that moment with Ernest, right, when I beat him at Rewired, and I kind of had that same kind of moment, right? Like a lot of times, like you win and you have that moment of joy, the Benny clap, the high, right?
Yeah.
And at that moment when I beat Ernest, I got up like it was just another day at work. Like I unplugged my stick. I was like, good game. I walked off the stage, and then like Scott and them, like that was the first day. They looked at me and they were just like, dude, like you won, like you don't look happy. And they were calling me like murder face Benny at the time and stuff. And I was like, bro, I just went up there and I was just like, not today. Like, that was like my mentality. And it's just, it's funny that you kind of had that same kind of moment, like, for that situation. Because like a lot of times, like, there's you would expect elation. And I was just like, I unplugged my stick and I was just like, yeah, that's right. And like, just kind of just walked off.
I went to a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament a long time ago. So my one friend, we had the Soldier Scientist team. He came up with all the tech, and I would kick the door down and spray everybody. That was our dynamic. So he'd play super technical stuff, and then we would sit down and we'd read what was top tier, and we'd say, wait, we're in America, so nobody's being creative. let's just build an anti-meta deck and hard counter everybody. And it's the same thing for your lightning loops when people would be like, oh, this is bullshit. I can't do what I want to do. Yeah, there's a point to that. So I'm beating you with like a $17 deck compared to like the $300 you just pumped into yours. And I went through and I plowed through this tournament. Like people were scooping. I don't want to say it was funny. It was funny for me because like one guy was like, "Do you have a kitchen sink in there?" And I don't know if you guys like if you played Magic, I ran the equivalent to a blue-white deck where I just stopped everything.
Okay.
So we're going in there and I plow through everybody. I'm like 8-0. And I win. And they're like, "Well, aren't you happy you won?" And I turned around and I said, "I'm not satisfied."
I'm sure that went well over well.
And well, they looked and they were like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I wasn't challenged.
Yeah.
I'm an intellectual. I enjoy losing because now I get to learn something from it. I get an experience. And like, again, being closer to 40 or 40 over 40, time's a little bit different for us because we know what our routine is. There's really nothing new unless we get a wild hair up our ass and decide to go for it." And when I went through and like, again, I plowed through everybody. And they're like, "Well, how do you feel?" And I was like, "Just give me my money and I'm going to leave." Because I didn't get anything from this. When I get to play my friend at his house, I'm constantly challenged. I'm forced to think. I'm pressed against the wall. These are bad situations. How do I get out of this? This is what we trained for. And then I show up and the people are like, "Oh, I'm just going to sneeze and throw all my cards on the table." Well, you can't do that today. So what's your game plan? Oh, you don't have one? Okay, I'm going to put the check mark in the W box and I'm going to get on with my day. And I sort of took that into consideration in my later years of fighting games. It was like, you don't have a solution for this? Perfect, because I'm here to win. Got it.
I guess the kicker though is like what happens after you walk away from the folks that aren't giving you any more challenge. Because at that point you do the Ryu thing, right? And you have to go find stronger opponents to actually challenge you.
So to answer that, that's why I started training people.
Okay, I was going there next. I'm like, what happens if they don't exist? Yeah, so you have to make them, right?
That's why I don't know if you noticed or not. I had like a small corral of people that I was training to get better. Come over, practice, play, let's talk about it. And then I was able to breed better competition. Yeah, it was nice enriching the environment around me, but at the end of the day, it was selfish so that I could enjoy myself more because I wanted stronger competition. You're supposed to have one weak player and one player that's stronger than you so that you can practice your technical stuff on the weaker player so that you can learn how to implement it. And then you have to play against someone who's better so that you're forced to think on the fly. And this is how you improve now. And that was I learned that from Daigo of all people. That this is how you get better. This is how you bridge that gap. And I took that and I brought it to the scene. Like, look at Mike almost beating Infiltration. That was a crowning moment for me. Like, he took the L. And then
he played really well.
Washed up, but that guy played out of his mind. And that was from months or years of us just sitting there and bullshitting and talking about the matchups and optimizing our characters. And that's where I got to say, hey, this is where I really get to shine. Like, I had somebody approach me about coaching a League of Legends team, not because I was good at it, but understanding the psychology behind it and how to make people grow and certain leadership skills and being mildly charismatic to motivate people. That was what I really brought to the table. That was my strength.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big parallel with that, even in like the sports world, right? Like there's people that aren't the greatest players that are great coaches. They make amazing coaches because they understand things from like an outside perspective. Like we talked to Rick early on, Rick Dog.
He leveled me up so much.
Yeah, and like we talked about him in coaching and like how a lot of people in the community have been like, yeah, Rick always, he's a great coach. He, when I've needed him at an event or something, I'd be like, hey, come coach me. And like, not to look down on Rick or anything like that. Like, he's a good player in his own right, but it's just like a lot of people probably look at him as a better coach than he was a player.
Oh no, absolutely. I was playing Ernest in a money match. It was a 1st to 10, and I felt bad because he was playing Yang versus Honda, and I was like, "Are you sure about this?" Yeah. I can take you. I can beat you. And I was like, all right, Rick, come here. And there was Rick mid-match telling me, all right, turn the idiot switch on and start playing stupid. Okay, shut it off. All right, he's doing this now. And the information that I got from that was like, holy shit. So he's an outside perspective, but he's reading the match. And then what I learned from that was anytime I enter a new match, we have a clean slate. I'm not coming in with a game plan anymore because you're prepared for a game plan. Now we have a blank canvas, and you need to either grab crayons or calligraphy brushes because we're drawing. So there's no game plan. You need to figure out what's going on. If you can't outlayer the match, I'm going to win.
Yeah.
And like that's what Rick taught me. And it was scary because once that clicked, I was like, wow, I can beat people with a shit character.
Yeah, so I wanted to go back, like what we originally started with, John, in terms of like you were talking about starting with Street Fighter 4, and then the transition to Street Fighter 6 now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
for you personally, how would
has
you say
changed?
things have changed for you, like in terms of when you were first learning, and then like where you're at now?
Well, so mechanically, just to start there, I know how to do quarter circles now. I'm dead serious. Like it's a difference.
That's important.
It's a difference between like I know now I've been playing fighting games since 2009, so that's 14 years, right? And so that's without a doubt plays a huge role in the differences. But I do think that like from a mental standpoint where I'm at, because I've been putting a lot of thought into this lately too, is the mental fortitude that I had in 2009, specifically like knowing how to practice and then knowing what to look for when I lose a match, and then taking that a step further and going into the social skills of being like, here's how I network with people and find better competition. Here's how I find those people that can kick my ass and then, learn from that. Because it's one thing to just be like, hey, because I think all of you guys have had an opponent like this before, that they want to play you and they don't take anything from the match. They just want to play you to say they played you.
Yeah.
Right.
Good games. I got to go. My wife is calling or work is calling. All right. Great games, man.
Yeah. Well, also, or just like in my case, like I had like a hero worship issue where I was like, oh man, if I get a chance to play Nico or Scott or any of these top players during my like intro to fighting games, I'm like, this is great. They're just gonna make me better. But in reality, I was just like enamored by the novelty of playing those games, and I wasn't actually absorbing anything.
That's it. So my business mentor and my cigar mentor is the same guy. Taught me something very important at a younger age, and it was don't confuse efforts with results. And you'll catch yourself like, oh, we're just playing, we're just grinding things out. Are you playing with purpose?
Yeah.
What's your goal? What are you gearing towards? What are you preparing for? Because if not, we're just wasting time. And yeah, I'm like halfway through my life cycle, so let's not do that.
That's I am currently facing a midlife crisis myself, and that's literally the definition, midlife crisis. It's the middle.
Yeah,
so
that's it. No, that is very to the point. So
another example is like I had a friend recently, or like when in 2009, right? I had a bunch of training partners that were really like, we were all pushing to get better at the game, but I remember we were gauging progress by life bars, as in like, hey, you lost to SNK this tournament, but at least you got him, like you took half his life in one of those rounds, right? Or you almost got him, you got him like to 30% or something in the first round. And it's like I started thinking about that in like later years, like probably 2018 or something. So right after Marvel, because Marvel just changed my entire outlook on life bars, but it was like, does that actually matter? Like, is the percentage of life bar remaining, is that actually a correlation with whether or not your improvement? And it got me thinking at a greater level of being like, what are your milestones or your goals when you're trying to accomplish a win here? Like, and is this actually a real milestone? Is getting somebody down to 30% health inherently better than getting someone down to 70% health? And I agree with you, Nico. The answer is no.
Did I deplete their health bar or did I lose? And I hate to sound so black and white about it, but that's what it really boils down to.
Yeah.
Like,
And
did I win? No.
the exchange that happens in a match too. It's like, what if I'm purposely giving you 70% of my life so I can figure out what you're gonna do with it, right? Like there's parts of the match that like what if the game has a comeback factor and you just happen to eat a 60% damage combo, and that, so like, are you inherently better because you happen to land that combo on somebody that made a mistake? Like, is it? I just like the life bars are too volatile of a like measure for success. And then at a greater level, like, how are you actually measuring your success? Is it wins by rounds even? Some people are like,
win percentage, John. It's win percentage. That's how you gauge whether or not. So like when I first started playing, I was in the same shoes when I first started playing. I was like, okay, cool, I'm playing, I'm having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got some money.
Okay.
Oh, hold on a minute. Wait, I get rewarded for performing better? Now there's times where I've lost like $15,000 bonuses from work. I don't want to say that too loud because like she'll come out of nowhere and like hit me with a frying pan or something. There's times where I've lost like really big fucking bonuses and I'm like, God damn it. Oh, all right, cool. I'll readjust it. I'll figure it out. And then I won't sweat it. And then there's times where I would lose like a $5 money match and think life was over. So, like, perspective. It really boils down to perspective. Sorry if I got lost on that one, but it was just like,
no worries. Yeah.
No, I either won or I lost. But that's why watching footage is important. If anyone has a sports background, like I wrestled, I boxed, I did stuff like that. So watch the tapes and then come back and be like, well, what did I do wrong last time? Well, let's not do that this time and see where our story or our match takes us.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you talk about like winning money, and like I've talked about this before in terms of like my fighting game origins, or at least my competitive fighting game origins, right? It was like I went to this Street Fighter 4 tournament, like, or I was at home, right? Street Fighter 4 came out. I was playing 360 Honda online with an Xbox 360 pad, just doing random shit, like, whatever. I didn't know the concept of frame data or anything like that. Heard about a tournament on the radio, went to the tournament, got second place, and the person I lost to was a Geef player, right? Like I was doing sumo smashes and he was SPDing every single one on block, and I'm just like, oh, that, like, I can't do that, right? Like I had got up to that point, to the grand finals of that tournament, without really understanding like what I was doing was not safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, but then my journey after that was like, I didn't really, like, I had found a community, right, in Alaska, but I wasn't like training with people on the side. Like I was still playing in kind of my own world, and I was like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Ranbats came around, I got humbled real hard, right? Like I went there and I would lose, maybe take a win off of somebody else, but everybody was kind of raw.
Yeah, you got evicted from your echo chamber.
Yeah, so I was like, I was losing constantly, and like John brings up the point of like, how do you measure your success, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a player there that was constantly beating me,
mm-hmm.
like with the most basic Street Fighter 2 combos, jump roundhouse sweep. And I made a point to get to the point to where he wouldn't beat me. And like that's when I started like studying, like finding, figuring out what I had to do, combos. That's when I learned the concept of kind of frame data. And I would gauge myself by going to those Ranbats and seeing, like, not necessarily the life bar. Like I didn't look at the life bar. It's just like, but how did I progress against this guy? Like, did I do something different? Did I do a combo that I've never done before? Did I react to something he did? Or, am I still falling for the same old shit all over again? And, when I finally got over that hump, like, it was such a great moment because, like, they, at that point, like you said, Nico, like, they couldn't beat me anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I had leveled up to the point to where, like, they weren't going to touch me. And, they kind of stopped playing at the same time. And, like, I don't know if it was a coincidence, but, like, I kind of like to think it was.
If they stopped playing, why'd they enter a tournament?
Yeah. So I was just like, you got to the point where you were beating up on me up to a certain point. And I got to the point to where I could beat you, but you never leveled up, they
plateaued.
Exactly.
I have a similar story where we were at an arcade in a box tournament and I finally beat Dan. I beat Vanilla Sagat with Honda, and I was just like, oh my god. I was so mentally exhausted, I ended up getting second place because I had no steam left to fight Juicebox after that.
I've
But
been there.
that didn't matter to me because I literally
Yeah.
beat the guy who was my demon. He was my competitor. He was my mortal enemy when we were sitting next to each other, and I finally got one. And after that, I relinquished that fear of, oh god, I got to fight him again, because we played later on. We money matched later on. I think it was at Haz's house,
Mm.
and I crushed him like 5-1. And he said, like, what changed? I said, I'm not afraid of you anymore. So those small differences, when you're talking about gauging how much you've improved, there's a huge psychological aspect to any competitive sport, whether you're playing tic-tac-toe or, 21.
Yeah.
What's my mental block? What's prohibiting me from performing better when I know I can do it? And you have to really dig into that. And it was like versus Dan. It turned into the more people I played, the more I traveled, I got experience against different play styles. Like I remember, I think it was Evo 2011 or 2012. I money matched all the Japanese, and it was expensive. Don't get me wrong, but the amount of experience that I got from that, I remember playing Sako for the first time, and I went to go EX headbutt him, and he just jabbed me. What? Are you serious right now? Just like, and it was a Buki's jab too, of all things. Like this tiny jab, is like, nope, you can't do that. Fucking kidding me right now?
That jab was so good. I fucking love that jab.
I was just like, I looked at him like mid match, like, are you for real right now? And he's like, I gotta hurry up and win. I gotta go smoke more cigarettes. Like, I'm busy.
Yeah.
And from that point on, that's where so from that spurred me switching out my jab button for a red one and yelling red light, because I would just beat people with crouch jab. I don't know if you guys ever went to any of the arcade in the box stuff where we were just laughing, and like when Scott starts laughing, it's very contagious. So I forgot. I think I was either playing. I wasn't playing. Who was I playing? It was Marvin in grand finals, and he didn't adjust. So I stole, I think, 2 or 3 games just from pressing crouch jab, because in my P brain, I was like, wait, counter hit jab does 40 damage. So realistically, I only have to land like 18 or 20 of these, and I should be good. So I was like, wait, let me just start pecking at people, because now you're frustrated because I'm using one crap button that recovers fast and it's out there.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. I got it. And that's where I was like, all right, time to start screaming red light, because now I want to agitate you even further so that you perform worse.
Yeah.
So like those small moments where it's like, oh, wait, aha, I just learned something. And if we trail back to the not getting new experiences, it's like, wow, this is really fun. I think I bought a new pair of shoes from that tournament, because I left with like $180. And I was like, oh, I literally just pressed jab and got paid almost $200 in like 3 hours. It's almost lawyer wages, okay? And I
Yeah.
was like, oh yeah, all right, no,
Yeah.
I can do this.
I
Yeah,
wanted to,
I had
if I could get into just brief
go ahead.
sidebar on mechanics here, because I want to know from Street Fighter 4 compared to Street Fighter 5 and 6, what is the counter to somebody preemptively jabbing, stuffing, like to counter hit something? Like
Block.
if okay, well, if I make you whiff it, like, is it whiff punishable?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But that boils down to, did you put the time in to figure out what whiff punishes it? Are you willing to experiment with your health bar to find
Okay.
a solution? So that's player dependent, where like when I run into that situation, I'll just headbutt somebody. Like, oh, you want to press dumb buttons? Like, I win this trade.
Got it.
So it's time to experiment. Do I have a move that outreaches that? Do I have a move that goes under that or over that? What are my options? And Rennick actually made a video a long time ago. I don't even know if I can find it on YouTube, because that's just like a primordial soup at this point. But he made a video like, is one button giving you a hard time? Well, what do all of these other buttons do to beat that? You have 6 buttons, you
Okay.
have command moves, so
Yeah.
what are you going to do to figure this out? And from playing Dan from all those years, or for all those years, the guy had the engineer's thought process down to a T. He just ran A until you decided to like get around it, and then he would deviate. But for the time being, why stop if it works?
Yeah, yeah. That notion I want to unpack a little bit too, because I frequently I've heard that I heard that one like out of the gates when I started playing fighting games. Is everyone said, you know, what is it, Art of War stuff, the
Yeah.
David Serlin thing, like everyone's, or what was it, Seth Killian's thing, the Domination 101. It was the same deal. It was like, if I think you were the one who told me, Nico, with Sun Tzu. It was like, if I can beat somebody with expending as little energy as possible, why wouldn't I, right? And you just
Yes.
keep hammering it home and home and like over and again. And I've come to like disagree with that over the years, because that there are times when I have fainted. I have deliberately fainted to show that I don't know something, and then waited until it's the right time to use it, and then blowing something like the optimal time, like this will kill. And I've been on the receiving end of that, and this goes back to my life bars are not a measurement of progress. At Evo this most recent year, I played against Kawano in pools. Kawano won the whole thing, and I lost. Obviously, like he won the entire tournament. I mean, I lost pretty bad. But you know, I won the first round decisively because every time he jumped at me, I just did background house with Chun. And so I did this Art of War thing, and I remember it being like, okay, so he's just going to jump at me, and all I have to do is just let him kill himself. But what I found out that he was doing later in the set is he was conditioning me, because he managed to beat me that game, even despite me anti-airing him with the roundhouse. And then the next game, he demolished me because he empty jumped me twice. And then he killed me off of both of those times. And each time he baited my back roundhouse and it whiffed, and then he whiff punished me and killed me. And so it got to the point where I was like, oh shit, he was feinting this whole time. He was testing me, obviously, to see if I had the anti-airs first and then running that next pattern on me. And so that's where I'm like, you know, he deliberately pulled that Art of War stuff out of me, saying like, he caught me being lazy. If I'm not going to exert that energy because I don't think you're going to change. And obviously that was a mistake on my end, because I'm like, you know, Kawano is obviously going to adapt. But it's that question to me is I always have to ask myself, I'm like, this thing is working. How much longer do I hammer this home? I need to stay one step ahead of them in case they adapt to it. And I don't, it varies depending on the person. And I have yet to actually crack that code of like, this is an algorithm that I can apply to people in general, you know. Everybody's different. That's the short version of it. And I can't, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, chiming in on that, there's where like, okay, so you only had half of the statement in that situation, where it was expend the least amount of energy. You forgot the to win part, so you still have to close. No, please don't take it personally.
No, I get it.
This what we're dealing with now is we have conventional wisdom, where when we were younger, like did you look at the world the same now as you do say 10 years ago?
Obviously
Absolutely not. So
Yeah.
when you get stuck in that situation, you got conditioned, and expending the least amount of energy, you found a temporary solution. So you were on the right path, but when we go back to layering a matchup or layering a set, he was layering, and that was a failure to adapt. So you admit, I lost, I got lazy, or I got complacent. That's just a learning experience. That's what that coping mechanism turned into for me. I'm glad you brought that up, because I just had like that aha moment. That's the correction of error. What do I do next time? Okay, well, if he keeps jumping in and he's jumping a lot, well, maybe I need to pressure him because he's holding up too much. What do I do to close this out? Because that's our primary goal, win conditions. So I get one thing is working, but now we're dealing with the top yield. So there's more to this, right? Yeah, there has to be. And then sure enough, that's what you ran into.
I agree with that assessment. I think it's a lot like I was treating him like a scrub. I wasn't anticipating that he was going to adapt, and why the hell would you not anticipate an Evo champion to adapt?
Correct.
I guess the big thing is like, when do you recognize that they are going to adapt, you know? And that's the part I think you have to lean on experience. You have to lean on your reads with your opponent and whatnot. And I'm still learning that myself. That's again, to go back to the original point about what's the difference between 2009 and 2023 here. It's that I feel more socially aware of when people are going to like it's almost empathetic. I feel like I can understand when people are frustrated more now, and I can use that to my advantage.
Yes.
And I can.
Oh yeah.
I can sense mental state a little bit better. I
Yeah,
think.
so
Exactly.
that's something one of the kids I'm working with now.
Mhm.
That's something that I was teaching him. I said, "Hey, you need to stop playing and you need to start playing." So a lot of us will sit down, we'll click buttons, we'll have fun, but now you're in control of your character. You're in control of the situational awareness. We'll tag it as that. Are you in control of the situation? First of all, did you identify the situation? Do I need to turn this on? What do I need to do here? This is everything that's going through, or what should be going through your head as the matchup is progressing. Did they adjust? In your case, yes. But did they adjust? What's the story that's being told? And again, a little bit more like the philosophy side of things. What's
I,
this person trying to do right now?
yeah.
What are they
I mean,
thinking? How do we step on them? How do we interrupt their plans and force them to fumble on themselves?
I think the
exactly.
fear
Yes.
that I get is that when if I smell that and I say, oh, they are looking to adapt right now. Their goal is to like they figured it out, and then I change in advance. You know, I think Zane used this phrase once. You lap yourself, where
Yeah.
you make the change even though they haven't actually shown you that they've adapted to it yet,
Mm-hmm.
and then you lose for it. Like that's happened to me before, where I've changed it up, like something with like Ibuki mix-ups, for example. If someone blocks cross up the entire game, and then I switch to non cross up, and they have stuck with blocking cross up, like they're gonna get hit. They block it and they get out, and then nothing's changed. It's actually a detriment that I chose to try to predict when they were going to adapt.
Yes. So
Yeah.
Clarence taught me the most. He said the most hilarious statement about this situation. He said the bell curve has diminishing returns, and I was like, wait, what are you talking about? So he's in finance, and he's like, yeah, if you keep doing the same things, eventually it's going to stop working. But if it's still working, then you haven't quite hit the diminishing returns yet. So like, keep at it. This is when he was teaching me how to play blackjack. I
Okay.
was like, holy crap, I can implement this. So if I keep laying on hands pressure and you're not jumping or pressing buttons, I'm going to keep chipping you and building meter until my super bar is full. Oh, okay. So in your situation where it's just like, hey, eventually he's going to guess right. Let me just mix it up now. Why? You haven't suffered a negative attribute from doing the same thing over and over again. And the 50-50 is on them. Now you just, you self-governed and you're like, well, maybe I should stop doing this now because I'm worried it's not going to work again, even though it just worked like the last 4 times in a row.
Yeah. No, this is
So
because this is exactly kind of what I wanted to even talk about, was in terms of like how we approach like a new matchup, or just a new set or whatever against anybody, right?
yeah.
Because like prior to this, before we even started the podcast, like, well, so my son out of nowhere just decided to install Street Fighter 4 on this computer, and he told me about it the other day, and I was just like, why? He goes, I don't know, I just felt like it. So me, naturally, I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna log in. I haven't played in a while. And I started playing again yesterday, and I was playing, I don't know, I played like 10, 15 matches before we started the podcast. Like honestly, I was a little shaky.
Mm-hmm.
Like my hands were shaking because like I was playing this guy, and I think he played Sakura for the first like 5 or 6 matches. I think he beat me like 4-2. Then he's like switched to Poison. I think we kind of split. Then he switched to Cammy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I'm having this like I haven't played Street Fighter 5 in a while, or any fighting game really, other than with my son, right? Stuff that we were playing on the side. But in terms of like playing ranked and doing that kind of like competitive stuff, like I haven't done that in a while. And I saw myself kind of approaching things a lot differently in
Mm-hmm.
terms of
Really?
like how I was approaching offense and even defense, because the thing that you guys are talking about in terms of the uh, keep doing it until it doesn't work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I literally did that against a Hugo player yesterday. Like a second round started, I was like, I'm going to command grab this guy until he chooses to do something else. And I command grabbed him like 4 or 5 times in a row. And I was just like, he's not hitting buttons. He's not doing anything to counter this. And then, like you said, in terms of the Ibuki thing, right? Like you would do the same thing. And then like you did the mix up, right? And then I did that, but then I chose correctly. Like I did 4 command grabs, and then I was like, okay, next time he's probably going to do something. So let me do EX Sumo Smash. And then it hit. I hit him, and I was just like, oh, okay. So he tried to do something different. So then I ended up going back onto that. I was like, oh, I'm going to command grab him this time. And then this time he command grabs me. And I'm just like, man, I kind of just messed up this whole vibe because like I was doing just fine. And I probably could have just won this round just grabbing him because he wasn't adapting.
Yeah.
But now that I did something different, now he's like, now I kind of changed up his whole mindset. I mean, I ended up winning handedly, but just the
Honda winning handedly, huh?
But no, that's an interesting thing that you said that Clarence brought up in terms of like you haven't hit that point to where like there hasn't been a negative outcome for what you're doing, and like that's something that I've discussed with people. I think even in like the AZ Facebook group and stuff like that, because I've been called out on that in like clips that I've posted, and they're like, "Why would you roundhouse sweep with Dawson?" And I was just like, "What?" And I was just like, "Why are you questioning like my decisions?"
I don't know. I personally, I don't think I would have faulted you for that one. Like as far as like changing it up, even if like it, 5 times is a lot, man. That's basically where what's in my mind right now. I'm like, if this person isn't going to adapt after 5, you probably don't have to worry about losing anyway, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
so,
at that point, I had like a 70% lead, so I was just like, whatever I do next, even if he hits me, like I was pretty comfortable with whatever was going to happen next.
Right. So that would give me like cause to actually try something different. Be like, the worst case is have you guys ever had it where your opponent like they get hit by something 5 times in a row and it's on purpose because they're telling you like subconsciously, like, or not subconsciously, but like through the game, they're telling you like as almost a fuck you, being like, I know what you're doing and I'm not going to stand for it, and I'm just going to take this because I know you're not going to go for the higher reward option, or like, I think you're going to go for the higher reward option. You can tell they're being stubborn, right? And there are those scenarios where it feels like I'm talking to them and I'm like basically measuring dick size and being like,
no, that's what it is. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
I will throw 5 times in a row, right? And so you find yourself not like, I find myself being like, I don't want to get caught in that dick measuring contest. So I'm deliberately going to change it up so that way we don't get into a contest of egos and I can keep overloading him.
But you're playing to win. That's been the huge like line in the sand for me. Like if this is still working, you want to be stubborn? I have more health than you. So, okay, this just worked 4 times in a row. Oh, it didn't work this time? I guess I'll just pump the brakes. Oh, it's your turn now? Okay, what are you going to do? Because you clearly just demonstrated, this comes on reading the player, you clearly just demonstrated that you're refusing to adapt. So now I'm going to put the ball in your court purposely and see what you do. So here's enough of rope. Go find yourself a nice tree and tell the rest of your story, because I will sit here with my win while you're sitting there just, with enough of rope just to dangle yourself. I think that'd be the best PC way to put that.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I agree with
I
that.
grew up playing basketball, like, I played basketball a ton all the way through high school, right? And it's kind of like the same concept in terms of like, okay, can this guy shoot, right? So what do? You back off of him. You say you dare him to shoot. And if he can't make the shot, then you just continually just back off of him. And you're like, until you can prove me wrong and you make a shot,
yeah,
I'm just going to back off of you. And
thanks for the turnover.
Not let you blow past me and get a layup or anything like that. I'm just going to be like, here, take this jump shot all day.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like, that's a different kind of perspective, because like, I know offensively, like that's usually like what we're talking about, right? In terms of like doing things over and over. But like, there's also that same concept when it comes to like playing defensively or playing reactionary to somebody. It's just like,
that's threat assessment.
Yeah.
That's straight out threat assessment.
I want to tie it back into our conversation from earlier, though. Like Nico, you brought up when we went to Tucson, and I brought up the one Street Fighter V specifically because you brought up that like I didn't have the backbone to kill you.
Yes.
And I didn't take any offense to that by any means, but more so like I remember enough about that match to know that that was probably that I had knocked you down and then I let you out because I didn't
Correct.
want to go in for the kill. I think it was like a throw loop or something, and I deliberately didn't go for the final throw, and then you used that as an opportunity to walk me out.
I
Right?
just bull rushed after that. I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
you bull rush.
thanks.
Yes,
I was like, thanks.
because that's
And
what
I was
went
like,
through
all
my
right.
head. I was like, I'm throwing him over and over again to keep him from doing the bull rush, and then I'm gonna back off, and then you bull rushed me, and I'm like, fuck. And then
Yeah.
it got into my head. I remember
that
this
was
now.
that was the dick measuring contest. I'm like, let's see what happens. This is what I'm trying to do. Oh, he stopped. Guess what I'm gonna do?
Right. So that's an instance where like I was trying to rotate around you and you were being stubborn and being like, no, here's the deliberate fuck you to what I know
Yes.
I think you're doing, right?
But that's because I know you as a player.
Right.
So that gets brought to the table. I'm like, he'll back off because you'll spreadsheet yourself to death. So I was riding off of that experience or the psychological edge of, okay,
Yeah.
he literally just calculated everything. This match is over to him. He just has to close it out. But there's a confidence factor where I'll just turn on a shit-eating grin and say, okay, it's go time. And you'll pause and hesitate and reassess the situation, even if you have the advantage. And that's just a player thing. I know from playing you after all of those years that you constantly assess and redirect. So I was like, wait, this is working. And then when you backed off, I'm like, oh, he has a new game plan. Perfect. I can implement my old one because he's not prepared for this. And like that was that situation.
Yep. It was like to the layman, it's I threw rock, you were throwing scissors, and then I switched to paper and you threw scissors again. Right?
Yeah, that's it. That's all it really boils down to.
Yeah. Okay.
Because in my head, I was like, "Fuck, he's gonna keep throwing me. I can't do shit about this. I don't even know how to. I don't even know."
In season one, you couldn't, dude. Yeah, it was awful.
I was like, what the fuck? So like, we're fighting Chun in season one. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna jump and get stuffed. You're gonna do that stupid medium punch slide and activate, or you're gonna throw me a bunch of times. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, what do I do?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm just gonna write out the life bar and see how this plays out. And then you backed off, and I was like, all right, I have an opportunity here.
So how do you differentiate that between, hey, I'm here's some rope in the nearest tree? Isn't that essentially the same behavior? It's I'm letting you out of the corner because I think you're gonna do something different. Let's see what you do. And then I got killed for it, right?
But you just saw what was done and didn't react or have a backup plan for it. And that's what when I boil back down, or when I segue back to being prepared and actually playing. So there's a lot of distractions. We have a party going on in our pocket with everyone messaging us, Discord, all of this other stuff is going on. Are we focused? Do I have your undivided attention? No. Is there something that I leave the coffee pot on? You know, there's a lot of things going on. So when you back off, now I'm waiting as the player. Okay, I know what your options are. We've played this long enough. You have jump angles. This is your normal ranges.
Sure.
For Birdie, for instance, he had that hop command grab with the chains. It was like, okay, so I could do this. And it's weighing your options. Do I know this character as good as you do, or do I know what your options are in this situation? And in that situation, I was just like, okay, he let up. Where, yes, it's nice to let up. And again, like nothing is in stone except for when it says KO or 7 golden letters of shame. And with enough of rope, that's me having enough of understanding or having enough of wisdom to say this is this person's only options and this is what I'm preparing for, versus me just doing a juggernaut armor spin or an armor charge and getting away with murder because it's like charge, activate, and then do some other BS after that. So by like letting them off the hook a little bit, you're prepared for their options. And in that situation, you weren't prepared because why would I do that when you just punished me for it for 80% of my health?
I think I follow the way. So what I'm taking from that, and I'm repeating this so that way you can tell me if I'm full of shit or not here, is I wasn't ready. So I committed to the attempted adaptation at the time that I thought was right. but I didn't actually commit enough to be ready for for the options that you actually had available to you.
Correct.
I had tunnel vision, and so it was less so about being wrong in that particular instance and more about what I did afterwards to recover from being
It
wrong.
was the lack of mental preparation.
Yep.
It's I'm ready to go on this date. I'm ready to go on this date. Oh, okay, I'm dropping her off now. She didn't invite me in. I wasn't prepared for that.
but the irony of that is that you literally spent because I spent I threw you like 5 times, so it was
you
like
paid for dinner.
But so the irony is that I wasn't ready for the one thing that I was ready for 5 times in a row prior, and that's on me for I completely get that.
That's it. So like you just went out, you schmoozed, you frolicked a little bit, you had a nice little dinner, you had a couple of drinks, but you didn't close.
And the irony was that you were trying to close.
Yes,
right.
The entire time you just spent 2 hours with this lady, and you didn't close. And everything was going right, but then you just decided, I'm going to change it up. I'm going to be a little bit more rambunctious, or I'm going to be a prick. Like, I'm just going to mix it up a little bit.
But I think the big point is that there isn't inherently anything wrong with that. It's just what you do after it doesn't work. After you get lambasted for being a prick, you're like, okay, well, let me dial it back, and maybe I can still close.
The correct answer is I fucked up. I'm not going to do that again next time. Like that's like the dog shits on the floor. You discipline the dog. Then you take him outside. That's kind of the ideology behind it. Is like, where was my error?
Yeah.
What did I do? And then I think, and you're going to notice this because when 6 drops, 6 is going to be like 4 all over again. And if the netcode is as good as I was able to like play, where I was playing some guys in Japan and I was able to whiff punish them, if it's that good, everybody's going to be playing because the barrier of entry is lower. Mm-hmm. So when you find something, like, wait, oh, this does work. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we're trying to take the prom queen home, and that's what we're going to keep doing, and we don't stray from that plan.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
It does. It's but like again, if I contrast that with the Kawano example, I stuck with a plan and I didn't evolve the plan as it went. I feel like there's a little bit of extra nuance in there as far as like, hey, you can stick with the plan, but you need to be ready to elaborate on it and expand it as necessary.
Well, that's why we're playing fighting games, and we're not playing chess. Oh, I have 64 squares here. Okay, let me just stare at this. Okay, I got 2 minutes before I have to make my next move. Sweet. No, we're playing live action, like digital boxing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you don't adjust to the guy that's throwing combinations at you, like you eat an uppercut or you eat a hook to the head or the liver, and like you have to adapt.
yeah, I think pain from an actual fight is probably more of a motivator to adapt.
Well, no, okay, so you're saying from an actual fight, but it is an actual fight because you're bringing time to the table.
Yeah, no, that's man, it's funny you even bring that up because like you mentioned that earlier, right? It's a matter of perspective, and it's just like I said, like I started playing Street Fighter 4 and I played 15 matches today, and like nothing made my blood boil more than losing. Like I had like the first 8 matches, like I won. I'm like I don't know the levels of these players at this time, right? But then I ran into somebody that was actually like competent, and I was just like, oh, like now I gotta kind of buckle down and play better. I gotta make better decisions. Mm-hmm. And there's no money on the line. There's nothing there other than my pride, and like that was eating me up. Like I honestly was gonna be late to our sound check if I ended up losing because I was like basically going back and forth with this guy, but I would keep joining the lobby. He would play me, and like I said, he played Cammy at the end. And the very first match, I lost because I didn't realize he was using Ultra 2. So I jumped in.
Oh no!
He had no health, and I tried to do a cross up, fell right into the counter Ultra, and I lost. And I was just like, did I really just lose to this shit? And I was just like, but that's on me for not paying attention to what he had at his disposal. Mm-hmm. But the next two games, I watched him, and I was just like, I the data that I gathered from the first game, the beginning of the second game, like I beat him those 2 games back to back, and that was the first time I beat him back to back. And then I was just like, okay, now I can log off, and now I can go do this podcast.
You're satisfied. You're satisfied. Yeah, that's what it boils down to.
Because I don't care if he beat me 6 times beforehand. If I got that one win at the end, where
Yeah.
I felt like I finally got over that, then I was happy with that.
Does anybody have a basketball hoop in their house, like one of those little basketball hoops that you can throw the tiny basketball in?
No, not anymore.
Okay, well, so we used to have a house rule, like before you could leave, you had to drop 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was my
That's
rule.
just it. That was it.
That was my rule. Whenever I left the gym, whenever I left my street, it was just like I can't go inside the house until I make a shot.
That's it. That's
Like
like
it didn't
making your bed
matter.
in the morning. Like, all right, I
Yeah,
accomplished something. Let's start our day.
yeah. Like I can't. Yeah, I mean, it's Call of Duty, but it was always a thing too. Like, guys, we can't leave on a loss, and it's like 12:30 at night, and everybody's got to go to sleep. No, we can't leave on a loss, so
Oh
we
my god,
keep playing until we win.
I
And then
played
it's just
League
like,
of
all right.
Legends. I played League of Legends full time. Don't recommend it. Like,
No, those
smoke
games are
crack
longer
first.
though.
So I'm sitting there and I'm like, we just lost a 40-minute game. Fuck, I'm not going to bet a loser. Play the next one. Somebody trolls, or you perform poorly. It's like, I'm not going to bet a loser. I look, it's like 2:30 in the morning. I have to be to work at 5, and I'm like, how do we put some coffee on? Oh, hey, I got my win.
Yep.
And that's learning how to cater to your ego. Like, was this out of my hands? Yeah. You know what? Did I perform well? Yeah. No, I'm gonna be comfortable with this, and I'm gonna split.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all kind of been maybe in that situation playing online too. Like, I'm sure there's somebody that you beat maybe 3 or 4 times, and then they get that one win, and all of a sudden they don't want to play you no more.
Yeah.
And that eats me up inside like nothing else, man. Because
It
I'm just like,
used to. It used
yeah,
to, but when they get that one, and I'm like, wait, I just won 4. Okay, you can have that one. I'm ahead on this exchange, so before you can get even, like you have to be ahead, right? So
yeah.
I won 4 and you won 1 game. Cool, you can have that. I hope you feel better about yourself because I just stomped the shit out of you for the previous 4. Like, we're good. We're good. There's actually, that you bring this up, there's this one guy that always runs his mouth in our online circuit that we got going on. So I sent him to losers. And he was hemming and hollering, and I was like, pick your main character next time because this was a waste of time. I was really rude about it. Because he's not a character specialist. He's like Dan. He can learn a character in 20 minutes, and then it just clicks. But the game's 13 or 14 years old, so I know all the matchups. You need to be really good to pull this out of your ass. Good luck. So I was really rude about it. I was like, man, that was really free. Like, are you good, buddy? Like, here's the suicide hotline, and I put it into the chat.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a burn.
A little bit. And he's like, play me again, do this, and I'll money match you. And I was like, no, you need to hold that loss and like enjoy your humble pie.
Yeah.
And then he called me out last Tuesday, and I was like, does it still hurt? Like, it really does, doesn't it? Like, oh, but you need to play me. And I was like, I'll see you next week in the tournament. Hope you're prepared for it. And I made him just sit there, and that's the psychological edge. But I was just like, hold that, because while you're getting aggravated, I'm like taking my wife out for pizza, and I'm not even thinking about this.
Yeah, I wanted to ask both of you guys, and this is probably the worst question to end on here. Well, no, let me actually lead into it a little bit more. So, we spent a lot of this conversation talking less so about mechanics and more so about like kind of the philosophy and the mental game of the fighting games, right? This obviously, I think we all agree that this could apply to any game, any fighting game, but also pretty much any competitive game, right? Like this idea of setting measurable goals, not getting into your own head, being, playing to win, focusing solely on, like focusing on the outcome of the match and not letting other things distract you, like that kind of stuff. That's all like good advice for getting better at games in general, right? So with 6, we're going to have 3 to 4 different groups, I think, that are going to be picking up 6. You're going to have the Street Fighter 5 players that are coming after like their first like really popular game, I guess, a relevant game. I count myself among that crowd. You have the Street Fighter 4 players that are coming back after dropping or not playing Street Fighter 5 or dropping it or trying it and dropping it, whatever. And then they're coming back to prove it in Street Fighter 6. You have the old guys that are from like the ST Third Strike people. I put them in the same group because it's likely that they're probably going to go back to the game that they like anyway.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have the final group that I'm thinking of is the people that are just, it's their first game ever in Street Fighter, like first fighting game ever in Street Fighter 6. There's esports money now. So you might get like a MOBA player or a shooter player really getting into 6. And if they have that same kind of killer instinct that we've been talking about today, you know, of those 4 groups, which group do you think is going to succeed the most at 6?
The Street Fighter 5 group.
Really?
I
Okay.
will gladly say the Street Fighter 5 group.
Okay. Why is
Now,
that?
here's my reasoning behind it. One, you have unlimited information. Whatever you're looking for is readily available online. So the dinosaurs who are like, let's grind this out and let's do this, they're obsolete. That's fossil fuel at this point. They're going to come in, they're going to play for a season or 2, they're going to drop it. You're going to have your Street Fighter 4 players that come in and say, this sucks, it's not Street Fighter 4. And like, I already made peace with, I'm done playing Street Fighter 4. It's been a really rocky relationship, and I'm tired of the abuse.
Holy shit. Okay.
And
I never thought I'd hear that.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, like, how long do you want to do the same thing? It's fun, but it's not like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed fun. It's like, oh fuck, it's Saturday, second Saturday of the month. I gotta go play.
Hmm.
And then you have your Street Fighter 5 players that are already committed to frame data, learning mechanics at a very fast speed, understanding priorities of what characters to pick. And then they're going to have combat experience, which adds on to the current genre of 2D fighting games, especially in the Street Fighter side, is we're consumer friendly now. And if there's something Street Fighter 5 did remarkably well, is they made it a very consumer friendly game. That is
Wait, are you being sarcastic?
No, I'm being very serious. I'm talking from a business standpoint. It's
Street Fighter 5?
Yes, it's consumer friendly. You can pick it up and start going to town on it.
Oh, like you can play, like the game is simpler enough. Simple
Yes.
enough. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm thinking like the rootkit and the launch and all
No,
that stuff.
no,
I'm like, that
no,
shit
no,
was
no,
awful.
no.
Yeah, I feel you. Okay.
No, I'm talking about like current state, where
Okay.
we're at. If I play Street Fighter 5 for 6 weeks, I could probably give most people a run for their money because I'm going to look and see who's top tier, who has the most frame advantages, what V-isms I need to pick for certain matchups, and I'll be able to hop in, and it's just going to come down to learning the mechanics because the psychology still applies. So with Street Fighter 5, as much as we joke and say, oh, it's training wheels,
Yeah.
the era of the 1 and 2 frame links is gone. We don't want that steep learning curve. Like, how many American Virtua Fighter players are there? 10, 12, 15? Why? Because the game is fucking hard. We don't want that. So the Street Fighter 5 players who got that somewhat of a honeymoon phase where like, oh man, fighting games are nice, because you can look at a lot of the top SF5 players. They sucked in 4, but when 5 came out, they were magnificent. And I feel that because it's something fresh and it's something new, that they're going to have those receptors open to learning and understanding better and faster than someone who's set on a previous game plan or a previous foundation to work off of. So my idea of footsies and counter hitting and punishing and all these things that I've hardwired throughout my years of playing are moderately obsolete because we now have something completely new on the table. Sorry if I'm dragging this out.
No, not at all. This is something I'm really interested in. Like, this is not the answer I was expecting from you, to be completely honest, and that's on me. I guess wrong again, Nico.
That's all right.
I just got bull rushed, man.
And then you're gonna have your mobile players. The mobile players, I think, are going to be second in line for people that do exceptionally well because they understand what a meta is. They understand how to press advantages. Where they'll struggle is the fighting part until they get their grasp or they get their wits to them. But for the most part, I think the meta are the mobile players and the FPS players, because like we can talk as much trash as we want. I'll like look at this guy over here just sitting here behind a bush shooting at somebody. That's a refined craft. That's understanding someone's hitbox. That's understanding how fast they're moving. That's understanding what their retaliation rate is. That's understanding the map that they're on. That's understanding their movement and where they're going. So all of those tools are still there, except it's getting reverted to a 2D environment. So they're also prepared for that. Where if you compare it to the older players, oh, this isn't the game I'm used to playing. Oh, blah 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 blah, and then just bitch about it and then stop playing it. So like the newer generation of players, especially like the kids, like I watched my daughter play Fortnite, and she's like not necessarily cursing, but I know what she's trying to say. And I hear grown men like yelling through the television because she's dancing around them and shooting them and hitting them with hammers. And like my son was playing some type of like building simulator in Fortnite where you practice jumping off of stairs and then shooting somebody that's hiding behind them. And then he implemented that in a
Your son
match.
was laughing at
Yeah,
Fortnite.
absolutely. Yeah. So when they watch me play Street Fighter, they're like, "Well, how come you don't get mad?" Because like I tell everybody I'm a dad. I didn't make them, but they tell me I love you. They come to me. I feed them. I take care of them. They're my children.
Yeah.
So when they watch me play Street Fighter, they're like, "You don't get angry," because their donor, he's like, he rages. And I'm like, well, no. Why would I get mad? We need to sit down and figure out why we lost and what we can do next time to perform better. So I have that at a young age. They're 7 and 9, and they know like, oh, hey, we fucked up. Why did we screw up? Let's analyze this. And that's my responsibility as a parent to make sure I'm not raising bums going into the world we live in. So I feel like the PC players or the mobile players and the first person shooter players, they're going to do just fine as long as they take the time to learn, because all of those extra nuances, like if you ever played, like I played League at a high level, I played like high diamond, if you want to even say it's a high level, it gets to a point to where you can't make mistakes or the game is over. You just lost your lane. You give somebody an advantage. They do like 12 more damage, but 12 more damage over 5 seconds means you're dead. That's how these kids are thinking. So I feel like the 5 players are going to take that number 1 spot. And I don't think a lot of 4 players are going to be able to beat 5 players. I'll be very honest with you. As much as that hurts to say, like,
Really? Okay.
these are just the facts. And remember, like, business analytics, kind of my forte. Um, and then I think the MOBA and the first person shooter guys, if they apply themselves, there's not a whole lot for them to learn besides the mechanical aspect of it, because they're already doing all of this stuff.
And we've already talked about how the mechanical side of it, it's not the arrow one or two frame links anymore, like you said, right? So the mechanical constraints have actually gotten easier, and that's
what I meant by that.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
It's consumer friendly. That barrier of entry.
Yeah.
I know it's a shitty thing to say, but that barrier of entry is gone. So
no, I think that's fair. Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, I mean that's a a topic completely on itself. But I mean that's something that during the start of Street Fighter V, like everybody was like, "Oh, this game's execution's easy," and I was like, "Well, if everything is so easy, like then it's going to come down to the players and who's got the better mentality, who's got the better mind games, who can win on that level."
Mm-hmm.
Because like around that time, that was I think when Rising Thunder was out, or was that the name of the game? Yeah, easy inputs, right?
Yeah.
It was like everybody can do these special moves, everybody can do this, but it's just like, but how are you? If everybody's on the same level execution wise, how are you going to win at that point?
Yep. Do you have an opinion, Benny, on like which groups are going to be most successful at 6?
I don't know. I guess Nico really kind of opened my eyes to a lot. But I mean, I kind of, when it comes to the newer games, like I always kind of think like the older guys are always going to have like the advantage early on because, like Nico said, the mentality, the all that stuff is still there, right? As at the infant stage of the game. But then once things start to develop and whether the mechanics aren't what they want them to be or they're not happy with certain things, then they end up tuning things out and going back to what they want to play and how the games that they cherish and that have what they find the most fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so it always kind of starts out with like the OGs kind of being good in the beginning and kind of like, oh, this is Street Fighter, this is my game. And then as things progress, like you start seeing the more modern players come through, and that's a great comparison in terms of what he was talking about in terms of like the mobile players and the first person shooter players. It's just like it's not a matter of dexterity and execution anymore, right? Like if you can, if you know how to play any kind of video game at this point, like you can learn fighting games. Like that's been a hot topic all the time. It's just like, why can't you make fighting games easier? It's like, it's not a matter of making them easier. Like the execution requirements aren't what they used to be. It's a matter of whether people really want to end up playing the game and, kind of their competitive nature. Like I'm a strong believer in the type that I think people when they're competitive, like that's just something that's in you. Like it can develop, I guess. Like maybe if you go through enough trials and get your ass beat enough, you'd be like, you know what, I don't want this to happen anymore, right? But there's some people that are just inherently competitive and just have that drive to be better and to improve themselves in anything that they do, whether it's fighting games or sports or business or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. Like you can't really. Everyone's hungry, no matter what their craft is, right? Or like there are people out there that are hungry. Rather, I get
What
it.
about you, John?
Um, I surprise like I align with you all in that I think that Street Fighter Five players will probably be at the forefront, but I do think that five players have in a disadvantage as well because the game is not five. And every generation of fighting game players has to run up against that of the sequel to the game that I like came out and it's not the same thing. And my frame of reference is my favorite game. And so therefore anything that's different is bad. And I think that like all the controversy around drive impact that everyone was freaking out about Street Fighter 6, it's mainly Street Fighter 5 players. So it's that it's different. It's to quote my friend Dana, it commits the sin of not being the game that they previously played, the ultimate sin of not being Street Fighter Five. So whether or not they'll like five players will be able to get through that is a big question. I do. I'm optimistic. I believe that five players have the most advantage going into six because I think six is the most similar to five, as well as like patch culture. That's another thing that I don't think that a lot of the older game players really have going for them. But MOBA players and FPS players do, which is can I switch freely? It's kind of like what you mentioned at the beginning of the call, Nico, was like you now are willing to play multiple characters and be willing to adjust based on the latest patch, which, you know, in 4 we didn't really do that.
No.
I played the same character the whole time. I played AE Yun too, but that doesn't count. Like it's that. It's like it was built into our identity in a lot of ways. The culture was different. And so clashing with that culture is the FPS and MOBA crowd, which is like we get a patch once a month. The game's boring otherwise, right?
No,
so
that's exactly it.
They're going to have advantage there. They're going to know. And then the five players will also have advantage because they know how to adjust to changes freely and look for trends, I think. Like we talked earlier about like, you know, we want to pick top tier and we want to use that to our advantage for favorable matchups. But first 3 months, how are we going to know? And so the people that I think are most familiar with the mechanics, the lab monsters and whatnot, are going to be the people that decide that. And it's going to be how quickly can we adapt to it and learn that character. I don't know if that makes sense. I droned on a little bit myself. So.
It does. So, like, I wrote the book for Honda.
Yes, you did.
I'm not tooting my own horn, but I understand what it is to decide if a character is good or not through experience because I sat down and meticulously did the homework. I did the research. I consorted with other people that played the same character. I got other opinions. I put all of that work in. So, yeah, like you find something and you are willing to put the time in to commit to R&D. And then, yeah, like, is this character good? How many matchups do they win? Doesn't necessarily need to be spoon fed to you. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to go right to the Japanese players and I'm going to see who's winning.
The Japanese in particular, you think, for 6?
Well, it depends. If Korea has a strong showing, then I'll choose Korea over Japan because the Koreans, due to like the heavy MOBA background, the heavy RTS background, they have a stronger ideology. Like if you look at them play Tekken, they're doing what's giving them the most advantage, and the execution is pristine. So they know to pick what gives them the best advantage to win. Whereas the Japanese have their mindset of we're going to play a perfect game or minimize our mistakes. Dog's crying, sorry. So it depends if the Japanese culture in general, like they're perfectionists by nature. Where when I look at the Korean players, they're out there weighing their options, like what's this matchup, what's the win percentage, what advantages do I have if I play a very tight game, are we good? So it depends cultural wise. If it takes off in South Korea, I'll probably watch a lot of them play.
Okay.
Still watch the Japanese play, don't get me wrong. But if we're talking about strongest region, how long was Infiltration's tirade?
For 4?
Yeah.
Probably. I think like the entirety of Ultra for sure, and AE.
So
I think as well.
he was maniacally crushing people because he played the best character in the game.
Akuma
That's it.
at that
So
time, yeah.
you look at that type of tidbit, you're like, wait, okay, we'll look at Akuma now. Who does Akuma really lose to? Yang.
In 4?
That's it for a bad matchup. Like, he has literally one bad matchup. It's either even or it's in his advantage if played optimally. And one thing I've noticed about Korean players, in fighting games in particular, is that they're very optimal. So, again, if I have to pick a crowd to watch, I'll probably tune into Infiltration stream and be like, oh, hey, what are you doing right now? Because you'll take like 14 Adderall and then master everything and do all of the homework for us.
I get you. Okay. I'm going to sneak in one last question. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
I gotta ask.
Go for it.
I gotta ask.
I gotta go throw the coals on soon.
Akuma is the best character in the game in 4 now?
Opinions.
Who's top 3? Who's top 3?
So I'll give you top 5. Top 5, we're gonna have
Sick.
Elena, because of the timeout healing potential. She has 3-frame shorts. She can do some decent damage and she can run away.
Okay.
You're going to have Yon, because dive kick, meter management, the ability to create an immense amount of pressure from neutral jumping, how you can link your ultras, the amount of option selects. You have a Kara command grab.
Yep.
That sets up into a B&B for another knockdown. You have Evil Ryu, where if you press the wrong button, you take 400 damage.
And corner, right?
Yeah, and because he's a Shoto, he has Dragon Punches. He's got a teleport. And the amount of damage from an uninterruptible crouch medium kick into a fireball, where other Shotos, if they do it a little too far out of the hitbox, you can do something in the middle of it. That's not there for him.
Okay.
So we have Elena. I'm going to throw Seth in there just because Seth things, like, he's still viable. You can still play him like an asshole.
Okay.
And whether you have 5% health or you have 100% health, your game plan is still the same. I'm going to throw Akuma in there, because when you truly learn to option select everything, that knockdown is doom, because you can safe jump, you can option select, you can empty jump into short, you can just do his command dive kick, not the flip into the kick, just the command dive kick, which is an overhead. He's got tons of throw potential. Like, it's a real pain in the ass to deal with when done right. Oh, and he can zone you out. Not to mention he can link into Ultra too, because of the teleport cancel.
Yeah.
So, like, that was a huge tool for him. I think the other buff he got was his stand medium kick, the knee. It stands you up now.
Oh.
So now you can even bigger damage from that. So we have Elena, Evil Ryu, Seth, Akuma, Yon for a top 5.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. I was curious if it had changed. I remember Evil Ryu, Yon, and Elena being agreed upon as the top 3, but Akuma I thought had fallen by the wayside because he was in the shadow of Evil Ryu. But you're saying that people went all in on the set play, and then
that's what his strength is. Yeah, that's his absolute strength. So with the set play, like, if you thought Gen was dangerous before he got nerfed on his set play, Akuma hits harder. So you either cross up, that cross up leads to an immediate stand fierce, fireball, FADC, stand fierce again. So that's already like 600 stun. And then we're going to
back into it,
knockdown from it. So now it's your turn. So imagine playing a character like you played a Buki. So you have like really good jump in options after a knockdown. Now imagine when Akuma jumps in, there's 8 different options. Now you have to figure out which one he's going to do.
Yeah, it feels like if I had stuck with 4, that Akuma would have been the natural evolution of Ibuki as far as like doing what she does better, right? Okay. And I thought that Akuma had been marginalized by that for that same reason by Evil Ryu. That Evil Ryu just does what it does better. So that's good to know.
The barrier of entry is a lot higher for him. Excuse me. And then an honorable mention that usually makes the top 5 list, but didn't today, is Chun.
Chud. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not only does she have good normals and a phenomenal backdash, what holds her back is having a shitty reversal.
Right.
But modern players have learned that you can do leg loops with her.
Like
And they hurt.
the impractical ones that only Valmaster could do back then. Like,
yeah, like more people do that now.
good.
And
That's awesome.
you've got guys doing like 60, 70 hits, getting all that bar back, using it, dragging you to the corner.
So she became a burst damage character.
So she hurts. And
Okay.
if she doesn't have momentum, oh, wait, I have all of these great buttons to keep you out.
Okay.
So honorable mention, I know in Japan she's considered in the upper echelon, but you have to have the loops down. Because imagine landing something and then leading into 400 damage. And then getting a clean escape, because you don't exactly have to pressure them. You can force them to trade health to get close to you again. So she's not. Go ahead.
Does she have Vortex after she lands the big ass combo?
No.
Okay.
No. The Vortex is you just ate 40% damage. Now you have to get in on a defensively sound character.
Okay. Yeah. So then you play Life Lead after. I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That's good to know. If I go back to 4, then I will try either Chun or Akuma. Honestly, I would probably play Yun or Elena.
He's
actually.
good.
Yeah.
Hey, look what Kazunoko did. Like,
yeah.
Come on, this guy's like crouch shore 3 times into overhead. Oh, you blocked the overhead. I'm just going to EX Dragon Kick after.
Yep.
Have fun. Right. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I apologize. I know that I said we were going to stop at 6:30, and then I was like, just one more question, like 5 times in a row.
I'm having fun.
Yeah, that's
My
a
wife's
good
out getting pizza and wings. Like, I get to hang out with you guys. It's worth it.
I have numerous questions for the next time we all have a conversation. I think we've got a lot from the psychological standpoint, but I do have questions mechanically about 4 that I didn't know back then, and I want to know now.
I got time for a few more, John. If you want to drag it out, like, we're good. I'll humor you.
Maybe in the post show. We'll do it in the post show.
All right.
So, because I also want to make sure Benny can get to dinner too.
Yeah.
So, GG's guys. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Nico, do you have anybody to shout out on your way out here?
No, not really.
Okay. Well,
actually, wait, I do. So every Tuesday night, there is Street Fighter 4 exhibitions.
Okay.
On this channel right here, let me pull this up real quick. So it is very NSFW, very rude, very vulgar. It's arcade culture Street Fighter. I'm just going to drop it in the chat. It's DJ Vest _UG. And every Tuesday they throw exhibitions. So if you need your Street Fighter 4 fix, it goes anywhere from garbage tier players to guys that performed well at majors.
That's twitch.tv/DJVest _UG.
Yep.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.
All right. Have a good one. I